Ladies and gentlemen, we will proceed now to our next discussion. Our next speakers are here to share their expertise on the topic of making the food supply chain reliable and address the question, what is missing? And I'm told they have all the answers. So let's see if that is the case. Here to talk about it, Michelle Lee, co-founder at Lypid, Eva Karólewska, project manager on startup support at European Institute of Innovation and Technology, EIT Food, David Hardiman-Evans, senior vice president at Ocado Group, Wouter Crul, general manager Europe at Regrow AG, and the panel discussion moderator Robert Walker, European Growth Officer at Alltech. Let's welcome them with applause, please.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we have a very varied panel here, so quite interesting perspectives. When we all arrived here last night, we were all given badges which put us neatly into boxes. So we have two corporates. I'm a corporate, and I think David over there is a corporate. We have two startups, and one who is support. Unusual. So what I wanted to do, just to kick it off, is maybe just have everyone give a quick intro as to who they are and what their business is, just so we can get some perspective very quickly.
Yeah, so I guess I will start first. So my name is Michelle, and I'm a co-founder of a company startup called Lypid. Basically, what we're trying to do is to make fat alternatives for the plant-based industry, to make plant-based tastier, healthier, and also to bridge the gap, so that the plant-based can actually drive the movement so that more people can adopt alternative proteins.
Eva? Try again, maybe.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. My name is Eva Karólewska, and I work at the Warsaw office of EIT Food. EIT Food is one of the communities of European Institute of Innovation and Technology based in Budapest, and we are focused on enhancing the innovative ecosystem in Europe. We are based in the whole Europe. We have regional offices in different places. We are working with all stakeholders in the innovative ecosystem, starting with startups, with the industry, so with the corporate partners. We are working as well with R&D, and we are working with the academia. And last but not least, we are doing this, of course, with the engagement with the policymakers, and also we are involving strongly in our activities consumers, so that everybody is on board. Happy to be here, and we are very happy to partner as well with the organizers of the event, and hopefully everybody will have great 2 days.
David from Ocado.
Morning, everybody. Pleasure to be here. I'm David. I'm from Ocado. We are a technology developer for the e-commerce space in grocery retail, and we partner with many retailers globally. Interestingly, we actually were a startup 22 years ago when we started as an online grocery business, online grocery retailer in the UK. More of that perhaps to follow.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Wouter. I'm GM for Europe for Regrow, and Regrow is a science and technology company dedicated to scaling regenerative agriculture. I'll talk a little bit more about that at 3:30 today, so I plugged my plenary already here as well. Thank you for that. What do we do? Just to give a couple of numbers, we scan or monitor 500 million hectares on a global scale for regenerative agriculture practices, and we do the same for about 1 million hectares for regenerative agriculture programs for our partners. So we're in that way kind of expanding rapidly, and also the countries we're adding to that part. So in Europe, we're deploying into Poland, Romania, Germany as well, beyond France and the UK where we were before. So we see a kind of acceleration in that way. And our partners really benefit from the accuracy that we provide them in, one about their footprint in their ag supply chain, as well as It allows them to then prioritize their programs as well as kind of monitor what they're doing in a way that can be verified across the different standards that are there on one simple SaaS platform. What does that mean? Indeed, they have a reasonable, high accurate expectation about what the outcome will be of certain interventions, and as a result, it allows them to align people in the value chain because the reward is clear, and therefore the kind of sharing of the rewards is also a key enabler, and we all understand the measurement is a key part of that. So that's why I'm happy to be here together with Robert and my panelists, because the true passion for me is how can we kind of indeed make supply chains more resilient, and we need all the partners around that to do that.
Great, thanks, Wouter. Just a quick introduction to me. So started life in South Africa, then UK, then Italy, then USA, and now living in Ireland. But all of that is because I was also once part of a startup, which is now classified as a corporate, it seems. And always in the animal ag space, we provide probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics, all derived naturally for animal feeds. And so, look, I just thought what we'd do is just to kick it off, just to get some perspective from everyone, if we could just imagine that there are drivers of disruption that we've seen over the last 3-5 years. And I'm just wanting to get your perspective as to what you think is going to be driving change for the next 5 years. And so I've got 5 that I've jotted down here that I think are major disruptors. There might be others, you're free to add them. So the 5 that I've got here are pandemics. That could be animal, plant, or human. Geopolitics, consumer trends, environmental sustainability, and digital and artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, I think, was quite topical today and in the last panel. So pandemics, geopolitics, consumer trends, environmental sustainability, and digital and artificial intelligence. Could each of you maybe just give your top 2 that you think are going to be impacting us in the next 5 years? Maybe we'll start with Wouter at that end because you already have the mic. Top 2 and why?
Thank you. So I would do a +1 on the 5 trends you mentioned. So great job on kind of picking the key ones that are there. For me, when I kind of double click and add my perspective to it about the kind of enabling regen to really flourish within the ecosystem that we're in, I think one part of it that really concerns me is how we're kind of sharing the benefits and the rewards and the pain of being able to do that transition. And that's something that, for me, we all need to figure out in terms of for the farmers who we all rely on to do this, that are actually kind of making enough money to be able to do that, and they're fully recognized for that part. So for me, there's a little bit of rethinking that whole economic chain and model to be able to enable people. That for me would be a key enabler to making that happen.
Thanks, Wouter. So environmental sustainability, top. David?
Thanks, Robert. I mean, I think, look, we've got a lot of external factors that you put there, especially in the first 2 there. So whether it's a pandemic, which is still very acutely in the memory of all of us, I think, in this room, or whether it is a particular issue with a particular animal or plant crop for a disrupting a supply chain. I think that there's a bigger one which all of that can impact.
For dramatic effect.
Has somewhere got someone to be? So, which can really impact, and that is distribution. Because all external factors can impact distribution. I mean, we saw the small boat that was stuck in Suez a couple of years ago, just impacted global supply chains everywhere. So I think distribution is, and in food, there's often the question of, have we got enough food in the world? I mean, many would suggest we have got enough food in the world, it's just not in the right places. So there's distribution. But coming back to Robert's list, I'd go to the end of that list as well. So technology and AI in particular, and technology more broadly. I think in this world, and we heard in the previous panel, the huge amounts of data available. But I think in order to help understand, analyze, and use the massive amounts of data that exists, but also to shorten the response times that are required. Actually using a lot of technology, using AI, machine learning, can be massively helpful. There is a slight issue, of course, as to how easily that can be implemented, particularly into existing businesses, whether it's internal systems, whether it's actually resistance to change. So actually, you may implement a large technology program, then find no one uses it. So there is that additional challenge of embracing tech.
Eva?
I think it works. Yeah, so of course, all of them are very important, and it's very difficult really to pick something that we should, that I don't know, I might assume it will have the biggest impact. I would like to focus on two. So one of them is sustainability. I would say, of course, environmental sustainability is very important because the food system has a great impact on the environment, on the biodiversity, on the GHG emissions. But also the food system will be heavily impacted as well by the climate changes impact. So, you know, the rain patterns, you know, the extreme weather conditions, all those things will impact heavily the food production as well. So we have to see this from this perspective of kind of paradox, you know, on one hand is an impact, on the other hand is as well, you know, how the food system as well will have to adapt and, you know, be resilient as well to all those impacts. So this is the thing, but I would like that we still as well keep in mind, you know, the social aspects, because very often we are focused on the environmental aspects of the food production, and we somehow keep on focused too much maybe on this one, and we forget as well about the social, you know, impact and you know, enhancing as well the communities and people who are working in the food system. So this is the one, and I would like as well maybe to mention, of course, I'm from Warsaw, so we are, you know, very close to the war. So for us, the geopolitical situation for sure will be as well the factor that will have a lot of impact. And you know, after the disruptions caused by COVID, now the war is like very, very important factor that is causing a lot of trouble in the food supply. So I think those two will be very important. And of course the technology, because, you know, EIT Food is all about the technology, and we are trying to solve as well important issues when it comes to the food production with new technologies and especially, you know, some disrupting, you know, technologies as well.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yes, so for me, I think the top two on the list that Robert mentioned is that for me, the most important is environmental and sustainability. The other one is probably, I think, from solving the problems with tech. So environmental sustainability, I think I don't have to stress how important it is, especially in the food industry. A lot of people were talking about how to secure the next 20 years of food supplies, how to make our planets more sustainable. And this, we have to do it right now at this moment, but it's rather a long-term process that has to, and effort that has to be put in. And that can be solved by using a lot of different techs. And I like the way that David has shared that, you know, distribution has, we have seen a lot of disruptions in the world because of COVID, because of wars. And also, you know, distribution wise, in the food sector specifically, we have seen a lot of disruptions, and it has definitely caused a lot of delays and problems throughout. And from that, I think the main goal is to create more complete networks of data sharing, how people can react to these incidences more responsively.
Thanks, Michelle. I want to zoom in on what you were saying, because I know that you at EIT did do quite a significant survey, which ties into what you were saying there. Maybe you want to just give a little bit more info on what kind of trends you found in the survey, what it was all about.
Yes, so of course we are aware of the global trends, that we've been discussing here, since the whole event started, but also, we have some specific, problems that we notice here in the region, and we are trying to tackle together with, the industry, together with startups, and together with the whole, let's say, innovative ecosystem. So maybe first of them I would mention is the disruption of the supply chain. So, the impact of the COVID, and then impact of the war, and, all other situations as well that we have in the region. It has a massive impact, there is a lot of innovators working on different solutions, but it's not something that will be solved very quickly. Then another one is the lack of collaboration. It's a lack of collaboration of vertical and of horizontal collaboration, because if we work together, we are, together more resilient as well, and we can work towards, unlocking some problems or removing some bottlenecks. But unfortunately, in the region, still we are not working in a very collaborative way. Even, when it comes to the associations of farmers, for example, they are not, as strong as we would like to see this. Another issue is also that, if we put more money in the in innovations, in the research and development, then we can have, great impact as well, and we can unlock a lot of potential, because we have great innovators here, we have great universities here, we have, a lot of knowledge as well, we have great energy as well, and people really want to do things. But the problem is, that there is still a lack of budget for this. And last but not least, of course, the environmental impact. But we just discussed this, so I will not elaborate on this. But those are the 4 factors that we really try to focus on in the region. And specifically, we are trying to do this with the industry, because industry, we see that this is key for this as well.
Wouter, you look like you want to say something, or you're just stealing the mic from David.
I thought kind of keep it, but no, thank you. And in that way, why I'm reacting to it, because it really is what we need, indeed, that collaboration, and to start thinking about solving this problem at scale. So when we think about the experiments that some of the CPG companies are running through at the moment, they're at scales that are far from the impact that we're looking to have, but they're still feeling they're doing something in that way. And let me just kind of share one example for me what good cook looks like. So there is someone in Holland who submitted a research program, and what they had done, they identified 9 regenerative agriculture practices, translated that into 5 sustainable revenue models for farms, kind of grouping them together and saying, now I'm going to work with 1,000 farms, 100 per business model. And we're going to start finding out in the coming 4 or 5 years which of those business models are the most viable in what environment. And that's the kind of thinking that we all need, rather than saying, okay, now we've got a little group together and we can be a club and we can kind of compete at maybe at conference league level. We need those kind of Champions League level ideas, and we need that to be done along a pathway that scales, rather than doing it on the individual parts there. And that's just a big call to action for everybody to kind of true behind that, rather than doing a local initiative again.
Okay, so from the original list that I gave of disruptors, we've had collaboration thrown in there, and also supply chains. So supply chain disruption. So I think with that, I'd love to hear more from you, David, just on Ocado specifically, because Ocado is a fascinating story of a startup that is now suddenly, propelled into the big league, I guess. What does Ocado do? What is the journey? Just very briefly.
Thanks, Robert. Yeah, we were a startup in 2000, and we were established actually as a retailer in grocery. The only difference between us and pretty much every other retailer is everything we did and continue to do is online. So we're a pure play online retailer. We had a couple of really key core objectives. Firstly, to be able to provide to consumers a truly compelling proposition. Otherwise, nobody's going to use us. But at the same time, to enable that with economics that work. Because one of the challenges in grocery is it is actually a very thin margin, despite what some people might think. It's a very thin margin business. And that's with, us all in this room acting as half of the distribution to get products from the shelf to their own homes. So when we do the online services, it becomes even more challenging. In order to do that, we set about developing a very different way of operating. And it was a model that is predicated really by centralization to drive scale economics. And we really embraced technology and automation to drive efficiencies and reinvent the supply chain within our business. And what we ended up doing was really dramatically shortening the supply chain within the grocery retail. So we have no complex DC and RDC networks running through our business. We work very much directly with our suppliers, delivering directly into the points of fulfillment. I mentioned we embraced technology and automation. One of the challenges we had was that truly fit-for-purpose technology and automation really didn't exist. So that started our journey in writing our own code for software, writing our own algorithms to optimize, and developing our own physical technology, so the automation and robotics, which help throughout our value chain. So with that, we've managed to break down many of the traditional trade-offs that you have in grocery retail, having large assortment, but very good availability of products for the customer, very good and longer life on fresh products, but very low waste. And now our business is focused and concentrated on working with retailers globally to help enable them improve and build their own e-commerce businesses using our proprietary technology.
So David, I heard you talking about waste there. Then, so from an environmental sustainability perspective, is that the biggest impact you're making? I mean, how does that work? And do you have any opinions on how we could improve the environmental sustainability even further?
Yeah, thanks, Robert. So I think the waste is a big issue, as we know, throughout the food value chain and every part of that chain. In the one part that we look at specifically, which is in the retail segment, for many and most grocery retailers, their waste levels in economic terms run at around 3%, 3.5%. Now, put that another way, that's an awful lot of food that gets wasted just getting product from the retailer into our own homes. That's before we consider what the consumer also wastes. How can we help that? By the way, for Ocado, that number is less than 0.5%. So how can we actually help with doing that? Part of it is around having much better visibility about how we order products from our suppliers. It's better visibility about the products we have within our own system, particularly around product life. It's better visibility around how our customers are likely to be shopping and what they want to buy. And a lot of that is driven by the way we set up, and a lot of it is driven by technology through software. But I think waste in the food industry and the food retail industry, food is part of it. But you've also got waste in terms of energy, you've got waste in terms of packaging, you've got waste in terms of transportation and the optimization of transportation. So for us, it's around optimizing the utilization of all assets that we use and about working closer and closer with our suppliers around packaging, for example. One very quick example. In supermarkets, in physical supermarkets, there's a lot of packaging which is done to help promote the product, shelf-edge packaging. It's actually marketing packaging. In the online space, we don't need that. Because the customer never sees it. Customer is influenced by other means, but not by physical packaging. So by working with the suppliers to help analyze and associate which products don't need all of this extra packaging, just takes all of that out of the value chain.
David, you represent more the end of the supply chain towards consumer, but you're talking about waste and efficiency. I want to just hear from Wouter maybe, because Wouter, you're at the beginning of the supply chain. Maybe you can talk a little bit about efficiency, waste, and how you think we could improve it at the start in the field.
Yeah, good question. One is I would die for the amount of data and insights that David has, right? I mean, we speak about big data, and there's big data, and when you have it, you don't speak about big data anymore, a little bit. So I think he'll hardly use that. While people who are pursuing that are kind of making that a game. You've got so much insight in that part of the chain. For me, there is a big kind of insights game going on at the moment that will help unlock driving sustainability in regen ag earlier up in the supply chain. Because at the moment, there's questions about insetting, offsetting, what pathways towards monetization of that work. And then there's companies who are looking to reduce their footprints by buying low carbon commodities. And all of that is kind of somewhere everybody looking at what the fastest and most impactful way is to be able to reduce that footprint across these different mechanisms, different monetization strategies, and across different commodities. So I think for me that part of starting to map what demand looks like, you know, group that on all these CPGs, what are the key commodities they're looking to kind of decarbonize, and start incentivizing farmers already, many of them in Eastern Europe, to start building and playing to that game. Because for me, it's clear that, you know, the CPGs will want to move and diversify their supply base to be able to benefit from the decarbonization that is happening on that. But there is no insight. Every company is going at that at their own. And I think that for me is the biggest kind of opportunity on that side, to really help us go to that level of impact that we want on this part.
Now, we've heard a lot about environment, and what came up in the last panel discussion there was this idea that people actually buy because of taste, because of what consumers want. So on that, and one of the things that none of you had said in the opening gambit was the number one driver for the next 5 years is consumer trends. But I want to just maybe zoom in on that just for a moment. Maybe ask you, Michelle, a little bit about what you think is driving our supply chain from a consumer trend perspective, because I know that much of your business is being built on that.
Yeah, so interestingly, I think the consumer trend has been changing vastly over a short period of time because of COVID, because of different kinds of external factors. As a startup, we have limited resource, so we really have to move really quickly and, you know, adapting to different kinds of problems that are coming up and adapting or giving solutions to adapt to different kinds of situations. And I think in terms of consumer preferences, the bigger picture is that they're still focused on environmental sustainability issues. People not only care about what they eat. Of course, taste is the driving factors, but also how healthy the product is, and where is it coming from? And even a lot of these information is being hidden behind one product. I think what I'm trying to get is that I think traceability and transparent information is very important in terms of consumer preference, and that requires a lot of people, either the corporate, to work along with the startups to build up the whole ecosystem, to share data that really drives, you know, smaller players to actually do things that can impact the whole environment. Yeah.
And maybe, Eva, I can ask you to also reflect on that, because I know you're working with a lot of startups in the IT, and how are those startups trying to address, I guess, the consumer trends or consumer side of it? Any insights or trends that you're seeing amongst those startups?
Yeah, I would like just to mention here as well, you know, I see a big role as well of the consumer associations here because, you know, consumers, they have, of course, the power. Of course, we have a very specific situation now where we had a very high inflation in countries. So, you know, the consumers were looking for maybe coming back to more, you know, like cheaper products, you know, and they were more focused on the price and on the quality, let's say, but maybe a little bit less on other factors. But I see that here it's really like a big need again for the transparency, for better transparency when it comes to the supply chain. Startups in our portfolio are working as well towards this. So maybe I will give one example of a startup that is working, for example, on a solution that helps to evaluate your carbon footprint as a company and evaluate the carbon footprint as a farmer. So it can be a farmer, for example, in the supply chain of this big company that will be part of this whole platform. And as well as a communication channel, they have a platform that will show, for example, you know, the benchmarking or where different companies are on the way to be more sustainable. So this is something, you know, that will be addressed directly to the consumers, and consumers will be able to see if the claims provided by the companies are real or not, because I think that there is a lot of miscommunication, a lot of greenwashing as well at the moment, you know, when it comes to the sustainability, and not only sustainability, but also when it comes to the quality and the health factors of the food. So we are happy to see that startups are working on different solutions that are improving the traceability, but also what was mentioned before, that they were working as well on creating the incentives across the supply chain. So it's not only the traceability and the quality and the ways, for example, where it's created across the supply chain, but it's also trying to, you know, provide the producers with the incentives.
On this topic of consumer trends then, I think the one thing that's emerging that I've heard all of you say is digital data, and I just want to go back to what you were saying there about packaging and consumers, you know, how they select, and Wouter was saying how much he envies all of the data you've got. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about how you are harnessing data and maybe AI. Have you got into the AI game yet at Ocado?
Thanks, Robert. Yeah, I will mention data. Thanks, Wouter. Actually, going back to your opening question, Robert, you know, what are the big trends? Actually, we've all subconsciously referenced it, and that is the availability of data. I think what we'd looked at was how we use technology to help us process it, analyze it, use it, because there's so much of it. But yes, in our own business, one of the things that I just referenced was how can we help to reduce the amount of food waste? One of the things that we're doing in the business, just in the UK retail business itself, we run over 20 million demand forecasts a day, predicting what our customers are likely to be ordering. Now, what does that help us with? That gives us a much more granular view as to what's going to be likely to be ordered when, which enables us to have a much more granular relationship with our suppliers and much more accuracy in the way that we're ordering product and feeding it into our supply chain. The data also allows us to really, truly work on a FIFO basis, not a FIFO basis. First expired, first out, not first in, first out. So a truly rotational process of rotating fresh product through the business. This has an impact in many ways, actually positive, both for the consumer in the way that it gives them much more availability of the products they want to buy. And we've just touched on what the consumer is influenced by. Consumers are influenced by many, many things. I mean, most of us, when we go shopping for our groceries, will shop from quite a narrow assortment, maybe 300-400 products. The problem is the 5 of us on stage here, we all have a different set of 300 or 400 products we shop from. And as a retailer, we stock it all. So having that wide availability, but having much longer life on the fresh product, we also use the systems to enable us to guarantee the life on the fresh product to the customer in their own home. But at the same time, it enables us to much better match what we're buying into the business to sell on to the consumer, hence the resulting number, which is the waste, becomes much lower.
Just on the theme of digital still, Wouter, you said in the beginning something about value transfer, and I think that's key, because if you're trying to create a truly robust system, there needs to be a transfer of value across the supply chain, from farmer all the way through to processor, retailer, consumer. So, I mean, do you have any opinions on that and how one can use data to transfer that? Because you're at the very beginning of that supply chain.
Yeah, there's always exciting areas where we're looking at what data AI can help, across different industries. But I feel with the kind of level of granularity that satellite images are giving us at the moment, and the kind of standardization or classification across the different agriculture practices, it allows us to start monitoring that at a larger scale. And what does that really in essence mean is that we're not yet at the accuracy of running 20 million demand forecasts on a day, but we can kind of look on a weekly level on the progress in field about methane, nitrogen, carbon buildup. And we can, in that way, not only kind of go back to it once a year, but we can help farmers kind of steer what they should be doing, and on a larger scale help accelerate and pick the winners on the programs that are there. And if we think about the scale that we're looking to achieve, to be able not only to kind of monitor that, but learn much faster which the big kind of opportunities are, and then deploy them really quickly there. And I like that kind of little play on it. They said it's not about scaling, but it's about deployment, because more or less people say scaling is what got us into trouble in the first place in agriculture. You got to learn fast about what works in what circumstance, and then you got to be really rapid in deploying that across thing. And that's really what we see, having a high kind of 90-95 accuracy on the prediction on the outcome suddenly means you can value the inputs, and you can kind of reward people across the chain for the work they do, and they know what's coming at the end of that thing. And that's a really, really big enabler to get people moving, getting on that, because at the moment they have 5 or 6 minute monetization strategies, and it's unclear how sustainable and how long-term they will be. And that's really, in essence, enabled by more accurate data and predictions about where we're heading, and that's a fundament.
So it's a bit about what David said at the beginning. It's more about shortening, using digital to shorten the supply chain and give transparency. We have 53 seconds left on our panel discussion, so unfortunately there's not going to be any time for questions. But in the remaining 45 seconds, if you can have 15 seconds each for your take-home message for any of those who just want to take one final point. So what is the take-home message that you want to leave everyone with? I'll start with you, Michelle.
Well, I guess the biggest take-home message is that this is an enormous challenge that we're trying to solve, and people have to try to solve it together. So I really want to facilitate, businesses to work together across the industry and try to make the ecosystem better.
Collaboration.
Same here. I believe that collaboration is key, and also I really think that the data is really, really key for many great changes that we can implement.
2 collaborations. David?
Collaboration.
Oh, come on.
But also, I would add, think differently. Think very differently in order to elicit change for the good.
You can keep it. I'll just Plus one. Oh my.
Okay, and two things differently. Great. Thanks very much, everyone. Great panel. I really enjoyed that. And I guess you're going to be around, so if anyone wants to chat afterwards, I think please feel free to approach any of us. Thanks very much.
And thank you very much,
you.
Robert, for excellent moderation. Thank you, dear panelists.